of the whole business of life.
What did you find at the bottom of that dive?
Well, no, what I found was many years ago, when I was learning how to dive in Mauritius, I actually found a Quran. And 5 years later, I actually found the islands, which were 100% Muslim. So there was some connection.
To find a Quran at the bottom of the sea surely must have been a truly life-transforming experience. What did it teach you? Did you think of it as a sort of a sign from
No, I
somewhere?
didn't think of it at all, because I was doing my first dive, I was hyperventilating. I was really frightened firstly. It was this bad visibility. I saw this thing lying there. I was holding onto my instructor's hand, and I pointed it to him, and he left my hand, and he said, go. And I said, ah! Anyway, I sort of bumbled my way through, grabbed this thing, clutched it to my chest, brought it up, and found that it was the Quran. So I didn't know what to do with it, and I couldn't chuck it back into the sea. So I gave it to the University of Mauritius, and I said, maybe it's an antique piece. Maybe if you guys sell it, give me some money.
Both Adhuna and you have a common factor. In your case, at that point, she was better known as Sanju from the ad, Aishwarya Rai.
Yes.
And when Adhuna restyled her hair and gave her this great big golden look, again, it was going into a territory that Aishwarya hadn't gone into earlier. How did you decide, and how do you persuade people to actually undergo a radical makeover that maybe they're even unrecognizable to themselves at the end of it all?
I think usually people come there looking for a change. I mean, people come to me and ask me for their advice, for my advice, and I think a change is as good as the rest, so why not?
But you know, you worked with some of the biggest super egos in Bollywood. And what has that taught you about yourself and about handling people with enormous egos?
You know, I think when it comes down to the work that I do, the ego somewhat goes away, and people look for advice and take, because I think I come with quite a bit of experience, so people do tend to listen to what I have to say, and most of the people that we've worked with have been really, really sporting and completely open to change, so it's been great.
What have you learned from some of these quite remarkable personalities in Bollywood, like Aamir Khan, or your own husband, of course, now, Shah Rukh Khan and Don and others who have literally surrendered their heads to you?
What I've learned from them, I think, is a philosophy that I work by in any case, which is that you're only as good as the last haircut you did.
It's like in the movies, you're only as good as your last movie. Wonderful, lovely. I think Prahlad wants to say something.
Yeah, Adhuna was responsible for Arjun Rampal looking completely edible in his last film. And I think that was the greatest achievement, because Arjun most of the time looks relatively edible most of the time, but not expressionally
scrumptious. Yes, scrumptious. Yes. Sir, you were with the Indian team during the World Cup victory. Do you think media at that time didn't acknowledge the contribution of our cricketers sufficiently, and can we ever hope to recreate the magic of 1983?
Well, I wouldn't say that we were disappointed for not getting the coverage or the attention from the media at that time, because the media was not so vast or wide, either the print or particularly the electronic. And most importantly, at that point of time, nobody gave us a chance that we would ever win the World Cup. So there wasn't much attention, and probably that was one of the biggest advantage that we had. And a reporter, a very famous cricket reporter in England, Mr. David Fritz, he wrote some sort of nasty things about the Indian team, that they shouldn't be allowed to play in the World Cup, they're not good enough, and all that sort of a thing. And after we won the World Cup, I wrote him a very polite letter about what he had written in his magazine, the Wisden Cricket Monthly. And in the very next issue, he published my letter along with a piece of paper in his mouth and his photograph, saying that the manager of the Indian team made me eat my words.
That was pretty sporting of him.
It was, yes. And since then, we have become very good friends. And every time that we meet in a gathering, he makes it a point to say that he is the man who made me eat my words.
But right now there's so much controversy over cricketers who are seen as being over the hill, being retired or asked to leave in a way that is, for a lot of their fans, not very pleasant. What are your views about when does a cricketer say enough and walk away?
Well, let's not talk about only cricketers. I would say sportsmen in general. They themselves know as to when to stop, and that happens in everybody's career, and that's the time when they themselves feel that they're not contributing, if it's a team game, for the performance of the team or winning the matches, and if it's an individual, it's very obvious when he's in a competition, he's not winning the awards, and that's the time they walk off. And I don't think it's fair for fans or the media to say, right, you have done enough, please go. They themselves go.
Well, we must ask Ayaz what he thinks of that. Do they themselves go, or do they have to be pushed away? We'll talk about that later. But I also want to ask you, you've been working with very young, restless, ambitious, aggressive sports people, cricketers. What have they taught you in all your experience in your long years when working with them?
Well, working with cricketers, I wouldn't say it's very difficult either. It all depends upon the individual himself. And in my case, I had this advice from my mentor, late Mr. Ghulam Ahmed. He said, never treat a cricket team as a flock of sheep. They should be treated individually. And that's why it was very easy for me to handle some of the big legends like Kapil Dev, the captain, Sunil Gavaskar and the rest. And the other thing was, I tried to sort of get into the individual's likes and dislikes and time my comments or any advice depending upon who I was talking to. And they respected me more as an elder brother than an official of the BCCI. And BCCI in those days had its own rules and regulations or policies. For example, that they wouldn't allow the wives of the players to stay in the same hotel. And Srikanth, who is one of your panel member, he had just got married. It was hardly a month. And they were virtually on a second honeymoon to England. And his wife Vidya landed up while we were in London. Srikanth came up to me and said, sir, Vidya has come and she's staying with my uncle and I would like to go and stay with her, because the next day we were not playing, we were only having practice. Well, I felt that him going and staying away from the team or staying on the outskirts of London, he may not land up in time for practice, which is not good for the team. So I broke the BCCI rule and I said, let Vidya come and stay with you. And well, in those days the cricketers were sharing rooms, there were two in a room, they never had single rooms like what they have now. And his roommate, Roger Binney, I said, you come and stay with me, because as manager I was getting a single room. Well, everything went off well. And next morning when Chika was getting into the coach, everybody pulled his leg and said, right Chika, how did it go?